Hey everybody, I'm back. I just wanted to stop in and finish the conversation I started earlier. I told you in the last video that I was going to come back. Elijah's resting right now, and I just wanted to take this time to share one of my experiences, one or two maybe. And I want to talk to parents and caregivers. I actually also want to talk to those who are in authority that may have a hand in, those who sit at the table and establish and sit down and discuss regulations and statutes and guidelines for parents and caregivers of people who are diagnosed with intellectual disabilities, special needs, autism, such as my son. I have a very strong perspective and opinion when it comes to my son's journey. I want to say I'm no clinician. I am no one with any type of doctorate degree, medically or anything like that. I am a single parent of a young man now who, along with his family, has had to endure some very harsh days. We've had some joyful ones too. But I really want to talk about some of the harsh ones. I love to be transparent, and so everything wasn't always rosy. But some things need to be talked about, and now I can talk about them. There were times I couldn't talk about it. There were times I just had to sit and wait and keep my mouth shut. But I would like to discuss some of the challenges that parents and caregivers have to go through when you have someone, a loved one, who is dealing with disorders or disabilities of any sort. I really don't care specifically who made up the rules, but I would like to speak to those who do. My son got diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder at about the age he was going on 4, I believe, between 3 and 4, because there wasn't much time for him to max out of early intervention. My son has a severe and deadly airborne exposure allergy to the smell, aerosolized smell of fish or seafood. He does have other allergens, but this one is primary. This one can be deadly for him. I explained in my other videos accounts about that and how medically he was sick as an infant with chronic asthma, still considered asthmatic, chronic asthmatic today. But I want to discuss how your methods of determining. I don't want to talk about anybody else's loved one because I have to talk about mine. I can give you my experience. I can give you my account. I can give you my suggestion. And the first suggestion I have would be that someone needs to go back to the table. Because what me and my family, me and Elijah had to deal with and go through, I don't believe some of those avenues anyone should have to go through. So if there's anyone that ever listens to this, please know I'm speaking from my heart to the things that have occurred over and over and over that I felt were very unnecessary. And the first issue being when my son was already diagnosed and disability had been recognized. I had files, I had booklets of medical documentation to substantiate the fact that his medical was justified. And it was about the time he was school age. And there were so many challenges with placement. There were so many challenges because I had to sit around tables with people who were designated, them having the paperwork right in front of them, having the evaluations right in front of them, having the medical documents right in front of them, and still told me I would have to place my son in environments that was not conducive health-wise for him, to see first if he would have an anaphylactic response. I remember leaving so many meetings upset and in tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears because I was angry that I sat around a table with people who did not know my son but tried to tell me what I had to do with him. And the solution was not conducive for him. At that time, my suggestion was that he not be placed in an environment because there was his allergen was being served every single week. It was on the menu every single week. But I was being recommended to place him there and being told that it was an appropriate place for him. I never agreed with that. I said I didn't care what happened. I would not put my son at risk, his life at risk. I would not. And I reached out. I wound up having to reach out to places and agencies. I was determined not to put my son's life in jeopardy because someone sat at a table and wrote regulations and statutes and laws about what had to happen with children who were diagnosed, such as my son, with autism. Parents, anyone going through this, you probably can identify. But it was difficult and challenging to have to sit and listen to those who don't know your children to tell you something that may bring harm to them. And that's exactly how I looked at it. So we finally got to a place of seeking other places that may be fitting for him. And as the rejection letters came in, and I looked at them, and the reason that they were rejected were for various reasons, including, some places just knowing it wasn't, they didn't feel they can keep my son safe. And I appreciate that. Every place that said, hey, we can't accommodate him, I appreciate you for doing that. You are honest. But it took till my son, it took almost 2 years. Almost 2 years. And anyone who knows, early intervention, early help is best when you obtain a diagnosis like that. So he missed almost 2 years. I wound up searching, finding a place I saw on the internet, visiting the school to see what it offered, what resources were there. And in the midst of it, just just about anyone that I could to see what help, what assistance I can get for my son. And I wound up receiving help. Here we have different types of agencies for children. I reached out to one that was very significant and helpful for my son. I had to do the footwork. When it came to that school who accepted him, and I'm very proud to say it's a school called Rebecca School here in New York, was very conducive and helpful for my son. The problem I have is that once it was established that my son his medical diagnosis, the intellectual disability diagnosis, once all of that had been ascertained, every single year I had to still prove his allergy. So it wasn't about me. I had to subject him to it too. Every year, you're proving that in a place that winds up being conducive for him, y'all are trying to prove it's not. And every year I looked at it and I said, how backwards is this? If a child is in an adequate place, let them grow. That's my opinion. That's my perspective. Didn't happen that way though, because that's the way the guidelines here are set. And I think it's horrible. I can say that. As a parent, the way the guidelines are, it is horrible. And the reasoning is horrible. Parents have to go to designated places where you're sent to see if these other places are fit. And I found myself visiting the same places for almost maybe 4 years, almost straight. Places that said, we told you last year, we can't accommodate him. We told you last year, we can't accommodate him. But I kept getting sent to places that the system knew could not accommodate him. Parents go through extra. I had to go through extra. Why? At the end of the day, his diagnosis did not change. At the end of the day, at the end of every year, it did not change. But yet, because of what is put in place, legislative-wise, the parents have to go through, the caregivers have to go through over and over to prove this not only affects the caregiver, it affects the child too. Who's paying attention? I am so grateful for those who were able to see, no, this is not right for him. I encourage every parent, if you've had to deal with it or something similar, feel free, comment, let me know your experience. I would love for you to share it. But I wanted to make it known on here that it's not right. You put more weight and bearing on the caregivers. If something has already been established, leave the child. Let them grow. Let them get their education. Why the fight? It needs to be changed. So this is just one. I've got several. But and if you have received the hope that you needed for yours, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. But for my son, it was a fight and not an easy one. And to this day, I have other things day to day that I have to deal with because of his health, because of his allergy. This is not something that goes away. This is something every single day my household has to be mindful of. My goal to see him in a less restrictive environment where he can go out without having to be concerned about whether he's going to come in contact with something he's allergic to or even other things. So I say this to you all. Stay with me on this journey, y'all. Me and Elijah, we got some things to talk about. We got some things to show. I have an amazing son. Amazing. Amazing. Love him. And it takes a village. It takes a village. Let's keep doing what we do. And to you parents, you fighting, you keep on. Proud of you. Keep going. By all means. Until the next time, I'll share the next segment with you. Have a good day. All right?